I guess I am. Is the sound on?
Yeah, sound's on, Tom.
All right. Okay. It's disorganized play today. We're making a play for the Dungeons and the Dragons. It's disorganized play today. Grab your glasses or your tumblers or your good old flagons. That
was sort of the entr'acte piece, I feel like.
Now you as the producer are supposed to take that and go back and auto-tune it and turn it into a fucking pop sensation, you dick. Don't put the, like, I'm not the talent. You're the talent. I'm just the empty vessel upon which you scribe your wondrous genius. So that was unexpected.
Yeah, that was
hey,
unexpected.
You know, when you give me something bogus like just show tunes, I don't know. We're kind of running out of musical genres. Maybe we'll have to have like a different word of inspiration. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Lommel. I'm your host and dungeon master. Welcome to Disgorged Play. What? Here comes the.
Can't be worse than last night.
Every show is about a bodily function. Let's just get that out in the clear. I'm your host and dungeon master. With me is the illustrious. Are you illustrious?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm award-winning.
Oh, are you award-winning?
Yeah.
What award have you won?
Mini.
Okay, you know what? High school speech does not count, because if that's the case, then I'm also an award-winning.
No, I've won film awards.
Oh well, I don't think I've ever won any kind of film award.
There's no awards yet for Twitch RPG channels, so I can't go out for any of those yet. But
there must be like a Webby or something like that,
maybe,
right?
Maybe.
Yeah. All right, very good. Soon Raccoon, congratulations to you and your mom.
Yeah.
Oh yes, TMBG inspired theme. Very good. They just released a new album, so go out and get it, nerds. They Might Be Giants on tour, sold out across the country. Not completely sold out, but likely to be soon. See them before they decide, fuck touring. All right, so every Tuesday, the two of us sit down and talk about what might happen at the game this week. Every Wednesday, I completely fuck up that plan, and also the players are like, no, I don't think so. And then every Thursday, I come back and complain about it. So that's what the theme of our show is. Hi, welcome to Thursday. We're going to be doing a little recap. We have several things on the agenda today. We are going to talk about authority issues. I think that's good. You know, I think we're going to be able to cut right to the heart of that topic. We're going to talk about the PowerPoints. We're going to talk about our little encounter amongst the giants. And we're going to talk about the issue of risk, which I think is an interesting topic. And then finally, we're going to have a little unboxing. I got a package. Much to my surprise, there was a parcel in my mailbox today from a company called Game Night Life LLC. I backed their Kickstarter back in 1998, and it got delivered today. So after 22 years of weird updates talking about how the factory in China once again fucked them over, I'm curious to see what the product is. I haven't opened the box. We're gonna do it live. We're gonna do it live. We'll do it right here on Saving Throw. So that is that's our agenda for today. Welcome everyone. Hey, and if you have questions about your D&D game or what's going on, or you want advice or something like that, I'm certainly happy to share my experience, my questionable wisdom, and my bullshit opinions.
That's right, Soon Raccoon. We can see you.
Yes, we can see you. That's what we do. All right.
By the way, there's two dogs in the studio.
Yes.
Both of which are farting up storms right
now. Oh,
so.
No. Yeah, and I didn't even feed Luigi anything bad. I didn't give him any French fries, although he certainly wanted them. But yeah, we have two dogs who are both a little under the weather, so they're kind of curled up and trying to be there.
Yeah, but it's okay. Harold's anal glands have been expressed.
All
right.
You know, the nice thing about having a big dog is they do that themselves.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And Luigi's urinary tract infection seems to be clearing itself up. So thank you.
Dog talk with Tom and Dom.
Antibiotics. Yeah, great. So yeah, the new table is amazing, Brian. You'll have to come out and play at it because the DM sits where we're both sitting. There's plenty of room to DM. The only issue that I have as a DM sitting here is that the players are literally like right on top of your notes. So if you have stats or whatever, It's like, how do I keep this away from you so that you don't accidentally
the way it's angled here for camera angles and stuff. The players are kind of sitting like
you're right on top
next
of
to
right on top of you,
instead of kind of 90-degree angled or 45-degree angle. But
I mean, honestly, like I will give you one tip right off the top, which is when I am keeping track of monsters' hit points and as the combat is going on, I never subtract. Like I never write down, oh, okay, he's got 80 hit points, and then as they go through, it's like, oh, he takes 12 points of damage. All right, 68. Okay, 5 more. Okay, 63. I never do that. Instead, I always go up, right? So I will go, oh, okay, 12, 5, 17, and then I just. For one thing, they never need to watch that meter go down in case they do accidentally glimpse behind your screen. And for another thing, you can just decide, oh, okay, well, they've done 111 points of damage. Let's pull the plug on this guy. You know, you do not have to obey the stats. That's an easy one.
Hi, Kirby.
So, welcome everyone. All right, so first out of the chute, before we actually get to our recap of the session itself, I do want to give a public thanks to Eliza Pearl dropping in and filling in for Megan Caves Kellerman, who was out last night on some personal business. She will be back tonight, or tomorrow night.
She'll be back.
She'll be back tomorrow night. But I loved Eliza. I thought she was a terrific player, and I thought she was super fun. And not that I didn't suspect that, but you never know when somebody comes in, especially to a group that's been around as long as these three other players have been playing together. They drop in, and you're never sure how the chemistry is going to go or whatever. And I felt like she was just like a natural fit. And it's funny because I wrote in there, and I was not sure with her character. I wrote in something like she's dashing, she's daring, she's even a little bit flirty, right? It was sort of a Han Solo, like a Lady Han Solo kind of character. And she was flirting with Grayson's with the Grayson PC, and I thought that was like very funny. It was like very hot and cold, kind of like, oh well, now I'm off you now. Oh, are you trying to win me back? No, I'm not. Well, it's working. So I thought she was terrific. I'd love to have her back anytime. She really did a terrific job. So I was pleased by that, because that was a huge challenge for last night's session. Was how do we bring this PC in for basically one session, and then what? And how do we get them like quickly introduced and smoothly introduced to the group, and like kind of integrated with what was going on, but with the idea that they could pull the parachute plug at any time and be either dead or gone, or out of the scene of the action. So I was glad. I was pleased at how well that went. Yeah. So, not that we're going to recap all the action of what happened, but let's talk about some of the high points. I thought, based on our conversation on Tuesday, I was like, oh, this is a genius idea. I'll have the Harpers approach the party and tell them, hey, this is a chance for you to double-cross Xanathar. Why don't you go do this? And I guess maybe I should have had them approach Thawne or approach Grayson instead of approaching Avril, because Havana was not having it. She was just like, nope, why are you telling it? Maybe we don't want to give that to you. I'm not interested in. How dare you? Are you working for the Lords of Waterdeep? Well, yeah, we're the Harpers. That's what we do. Well, guess what? You're not my dad.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I need to keep in mind that her character is sort of built around this rogue, core of I'm out to steal stuff, right? Like I'm out to pull one on people, and I don't want to have to report to anyone or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. It's the classic. You've told her how much something is worth now, and now she's like, okay, well, I don't know if I want to give it to you. How much is it worth to you? And then she's just playing the spectrum now. And no one, no matter how much they've proven themselves to the party, is worthwhile. I'm sure if Thawne came and was like, hey, why don't you just pass over that map to me? And she'd be like, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe not.
Yeah. So I was a little bit taken aback in the moment, anyhow, at how that went.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but I thought it was going to be something. I will say that there was sort of a metagame factor at play there in the fact that I had told the players, like, hey, we've got a lot of stuff to get through, and I want to get Eliza into the action kind of as quickly as possible. So I know that, like, we all know as players we're going to accept this mission, right? So take a few minutes to think about why your character would go on it and what they would want out of it, and let's just get that piece of it out of the way, right? So I think there was a little bit of like, why are you giving us extra motivation when we're just gonna, like, you know, make our play for whatever we want and then get this over with. So Wraith42 says, it did amuse me that she, being the lowest in character, made some great points to Xanathar about the book and that he'd murder them all if they didn't bring it right back, whether formally part of the contract or not. Yeah, I, honestly, that question took me, or that portion of the negotiation kind of took me by surprise, because I was like, okay, well, he needs to modify the contract, but, like, what would he add in that would be an additional stickler?
Sure.
He already had kind of some outs because she was like, you can't command anyone to kill us. And he was thinking to himself, no, I don't have to command anyone. I can, like, put a formal request out. I'll just put a bounty on your head, and if somebody kills you, that's your problem, not me.
He doesn't have to magically do it at all.
Yeah. He had a number of outs in the existing setup, so it was like, well, what's the next thing? And I think maybe if I had, you know, I'm still in the process of developing what the interior of the ship is going to be like, right? Then I think I might have said, well, okay, not only do I want the God's Fire, but I've heard that there's this other thing I want that too, right? Like, that could have been layered on top. Although I can see them pushing back against that. No, we're going to get that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, how does he win other than by, you know, reinforcing his position that he's going to murder them?
Right.
Which is fine. Yeah, he could have demanded a Geas. I have never, in all of my DMing career, I've never used a Geas on a party. It feels like such a, like, an in-game screw job, right? Like, he could have asked them to agree to one, and then they probably could have, you know, dealt with that. But in terms of just, like, a regular mechanic, like, it feels like a failing on the part of the DM, where I can't give you a personal motivation or a enticing enough hook for you to go on this adventure. Therefore, I'm having this NPC make you go do this thing. And it always just feels like super heavy-handed, and it just, I don't think it's good motivation. Like, it's if you would build an adventure around, here's how you can subvert and kind of, like, fight your way or beat a Geas, I think that would be a fine use of it and a cool adventure. But in terms of, like, using it to reinforce the quest, I think it's kind of garbage. That's just me. Yeah, you know, the other thing to keep in mind, yeah, it would have been cool if he had a magical contract, as Wraith42 points out. Like, if he had something like, okay, well, now I want you to sign this. Like,
yeah.
I was trying to get the session moving. Otherwise, I probably should have had, like, a moment where he signed it, right? Now it's your turn. Put your name on this thing. But also, he doesn't need to have them put their name on this thing, and then they know that. So it was sort of a moot point, right? Although it was, like, a fun role-play moment where he just glops his eye on the thing. So gross. I didn't want to have him request, like, technological items because, you know, I don't know that the majority of the table knows exactly what's going on here, right? Like, I think most of the table is unaware that they're going to go into a spaceship. I think they might know, like, oh, that's the adventure where there's, like, laser guns and stuff like that. But I don't think they have any idea of what's in store for them. And so I don't want to foreshadow that too much with NPCs in the world going, oh, well, you know.
Yeah, I don't think any of them know at all. I think Eric might have an inkling of it, but he's never played it before. And I don't think even Xanathar would know what is in there, because the whole conceit is that no one's been able to get in there and come back out. So,
Right.
all he knows is that there's probably something very powerful in there.
We're getting there, Shimmickson. We're getting there. We haven't gotten. That's the next thing. But yeah, we might as well move on to the next thing. DJ Regular chimes in about the Geas, and that the only reason that it worked in his game was because it eventually came about how to subvert or beat it. And then that becomes its own quest. Yeah. So I'm hoping to. I didn't get enough time to. I had to track down my tracing paper. I didn't get enough time to update the map so that it's not, a copyrighted piece of art that we can't share. So I'm going to update the map that was in the PowerPoint deck that you saw last night. Mm-hmm. But that's coming. It's just not ready today. Yeah, I agree. I did love that Avril tried to get Baudry to come along for unknown reasons. Really, I'm not sure what it was.
As a hostage.
Yeah, as a hostage, and I'm like, you're not holding Baudry hostage. Brian asks, are you planning to edit or shorten the trek through the ship? We haven't gotten that far in the design discussion, but I think the main point to be made about the ship is I don't think that the adventure in the ship is going to be about getting in and getting out. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just keep exploring until we find the right key cards and get down to the proper level that'll let us get out. I think there may actually be a scenario here where they go up and down and throughout the ship. And I've actually considered starting the thing off right away with putting them in an elevator and letting them pick whichever level they want to go to, like making it a little bit sandboxy. I've considered that. I think it will drive me nuts, so I'm probably not going to do that because I'm just not prepared that far enough ahead to like let them loose in a sandbox. But to me, the premise of the remix, the revision that I want to do, is your job is to somehow fix the situation on the ship. Like it's not just a ship that suffered a calamity and then got entombed and kind of set in stasis. It can still be set in stasis.
Yeah.
But the calamity, the catastrophe that's occurred is somehow either ongoing or the consequences of it are ongoing, and it's their job to somehow mend it, right? So it's going to be much more of a let's fix what's wrong rather than let's kill a bunch of stuff, collect laser guns, and get out. If I was going, if that was the mission, then it would probably just be 2 sessions and then we'd get it over with. But I feel like I feel like there's a lot of meat to be explored here in terms of the situation. And if we want to have some really interesting role-playing encounters and whatnot, then we have to develop the adventure beyond what's stated, because what's stated is pretty threadbare. Vegapygmies. 8 live in each one of these rooms. Jeez, what? No. So if it was going to be a straight up combat slog, I would definitely edit it. But I don't anticipate that happening. I think it's more likely like, these Vegapygmies worship this thing and they want this thing, and the computer is actually a sentient AI that may be deranged or have problems or whatever. Is everything okay?
Yeah, it's stuck.
You didn't know that you could take the cup holders out?
Oh, I knew because I put them in.
Oh my! What did you stick?
No, I'm all right.
Are you feeding Harold through the hole?
That's what I think it's for.
Don't do that.
I think it's for, and then no one knows. No one knows that that's what you're doing. Anyway,
Wraith42 says, I like making it more of a mystery to start with. Everything will be alien and they have a mission to do, and there's all sorts of complete unknowns tossed in their path as obstacles. Yeah, so I mean that's sort of what we're going to do. They're going to want to discover more about this God's Fire thing, so we need to keep that like kind of front and center. Although they're going to have these obstacles of like, does anybody on the ship speak English, or common or whatever, Are they going to be able to communicate with these creatures, etc.? How do all of the various doors and robots and things work and whatnot? So Is Jesse Ventura the voice of the computer? That would be great. Campaign Coins says, back in the day, this module borked my campaign because the PCs emerged so overpowered. It's the only Errol Otis art that sparks unreasoning hatred in me. Yeah, fair enough. That's all cool too. Yeah, we could. I honestly, like, I joke about it, but I don't think the computer is going to be. I don't think it's going to be any of the stereotype stuff that you expect from sci-fi movies, right? I want to avoid alien type of references. I want to avoid 2001: Space Odyssey type references. I want to avoid Paranoia and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I want to avoid Star Wars. Right. I don't know. Like maybe like a Battlestar Galactica thing would be okay, but.
But what if you mixed the two and it was 2001: Space Odyssey but with Jesse Ventura?
Hey, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave. Sorry, the pod bay doors are closed. That's all good. And the thing is, like, these are all natural inspirations for your role playing, right? Like as you probably saw last night, you want to go to like what your shorthand is. Go to what you when you get called on the carpet, you go to what the nearest tool in your toolbox and you start going away, working away on the problem. So those types of places are like the first place that you think. But I was thinking about this the other day. We're off on a tangent. But the real trick with being the DM is that you always want to present some sort of twist, turn, or surprise, right? That's really your job as the DM sitting in the middle of the table, wherever, however your arrangement is you want to offer up something to the characters that might seem familiar on the surface, but offer some sort of twist, turn, or surprise so that when they go in and they encounter it and they interact with it, they go, oh, that's not what I expected, And there's something to be said for sort of just like the mindless grind of like, oh, okay, 12 orcs walk into the room, let's like murder our way to the other side, right? But that only has a limited sort of appeal, and that's for situations where it's like, okay, well, we don't want to create a lot of like brain power. We don't want to overheat everybody with thinking about, oh, okay, well, here's what this is going to be, right? But most of the time, your job is to reveal something unpredictable. And so when you go to those standard sources of inspiration and you don't twist, turn them, or otherwise kind of like bring a new dimension into the presentation, into what's coming back, that's when your players kind of like lose interest. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh. They know where it's going, and they know how it's supposed to play out, and then they feel like they're not really driving the story. They're just following along the story based on whatever based on the matrix or whatever your particular inspiration was, right? So it's a little tricky. Like that's your goal, is to show them something new. Now, sometimes it's easy, like in the case of this adventure, nobody's played it, so maybe we don't have to dress it up as much. But that's where I would be careful, and that's a lot of times that's where you get in trouble with humor, is like if you make an obvious joke, it's like everybody goes, yeah, I thought of that the same time you did, except I decided not to say it because it was so obvious, right? So, Sly Flourish is in the chat today. Hello, Mike, good to see you. We have not talked about them yet. We're saving those kind of towards the end of the show. Hopefully you can stick with us here. I've got the box. I have not opened it yet. I honestly don't remember exactly what I ordered.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if mine came, if they're just sitting waiting for me at home, but we shall see.
Yes, so Wraith42 has some suggestions about the computer. I think the tricky part about the computer is, the tricky part about the ship in general, right, is that I want the ship to feel like an alien environment. Not like alien as in the movie, but like alien as in weird and kind of ancient and disturbing and off-putting, right? And so if you have it be like, hi, I'm the computer, I'm here to help you, that feels very familiar, a little bit, you know, kind of like 1950s Fallout kind of vibe or whatever. Like it creates a closeness between the GM, you know, the game world and the players that does not shock them or bring them out of like, what's going on here? And even if you do have it twist around and be like, and I want to murder people, like, okay, you've still established it on a level of like, oh, okay, I can relate to this thing because I know how it talks, and then it says something weird, and you're like, oh, okay, I can relate to this thing because I know of the trope of like the two-faced serial killer kind of thing, right? Whereas if you have it speak in kind of like a weird cadence or like a different tone, or I don't know, like maybe I'll even get like a little voice changer, which I think would be a little cheesy. But if you give it a different characterization than something that you've plucked from popular culture or video games or film or whatever, then it does make them go, what are the motivations of this thing, and who are the people who made it, and what are they like? And it creates more questions that allow you to deliver a bigger surprise than even if you come at it from a familiar angle and then suddenly like do a big twist, the twist isn't as big, right? In this particular setup. So we have a couple other questions here that I'm going to address, and then we'll get back to our agenda, right? So Blind Seer says, plot twists are key, but your RP characters as GM can't be undervalued. Do you practice them beforehand, or do they just come out of you? This did come up last night, right? So I've got, like, I realized, like, I'm like, holy crap, how many different accents am I trying to do in one single session, right? Because we have Baudry, who's a little bit kind of whatever, East Endish or whatever, like, oh, all right, let's go, come on, let's get on with it. Yeah. And then you have Xanathar, who's sort of British and haunting. Oh yeah, I'm so glad to have you all here. Yeah. And then we had that gnome character, and as I was doing the gnome sage, I was like, I'm not sure where this accent started, and I'm not sure where it's going to finish, but we're just going to keep plowing it. He's a little bit of a distracted British man I wanted him to have a little bit of that David Attenborough kind of vibe to it, right? So that's going on.
Talia.
Yeah, and Talia is Southern, and then we got to the giants, and the ogre giants were German, but then the King Cloud giant was almost kind of Slavic or Russian.
Yeah, he had it.
Yeah, he kind of twisted. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like there were definitely moments where I'm like, I'm not sure that this accent stuck, you know, or that it's working, but I'm gonna kind of like just keep working on it and bend at it and come back to it.
Simon had some words for your German accent.
Well, I could do a really good German accent, but that wasn't one of them last night, right? I did not write down the accents for the races and things like that, right? I did know that I wanted the fussy professor to be a little bit, you know, kind of twitchy like that. And I know what Baudry is like. A lot of the times, there are two things I think of. Like, so first of all, I will say, I enjoy doing accents, right? So I listen to that stuff when I kind of practice talking about it, and I would recommend practice talking in character, right? I certainly do this in the car all the time, where I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna meet this guy, like, what's this conversation gonna be like? And I start coming up with catchphrases and working out kind of like how they chew their words around and what sort of words sound interesting coming out of their mouth. Right? Because the way that people say things and the cadence that they say things is just as important as like where they're from, or the two things are intertwined, right? You can't separate them. So I do practice in the car. I think the other thing too is there are two other factors for me that, like, probably three other factors for me that bring this into my wheelhouse, which is, number one, I'm an actor, right? Number two, I have been a musician. You know, when I grew up, I started playing the piano, and then I kind of gave that up, and then I started playing the saxophone. I played that all through high school. And so there's something about having to learn to read music and then play music and learn the rhythm of music and how, you know, that note maps on a keyboard or on a musical instrument or whatever. And also I sang, right? So those things help give you an idea of, like, when you listen to somebody foreign talk, it's like, oh, okay, here's kind of like the music of their language, of their you know, not just their vocabulary, but their speaking style, their accent. So that's it. And then the third thing that I think gives me a natural advantage is that I did go and live in Germany and become fairly fluent in German, right? And so I got shook out of, like, okay, and I had to completely change gears in my mouth to say the things that I wanted to say. And, you know, your grammatical constructions are completely different and all of that sort of stuff. So I will say that, like, if you're sitting there going, wow, he does a really great job with accents, I have a lot of, like, natural experience and ability and talent preloaded to bring that to the table. But I think especially with, you know, the advent of so many, like, pods and podcasts and video logs and Twitch streams and things like that, you have such a great opportunity to listen to native speakers from different places having regular, normal, casual conversations. Like, as an actor, there used to be, like, books where it would be like, okay, here's a if you can practice this paragraph, listen along to the CD and it'll help you master all of the different, like, standard British English sounds. Yeah. You don't have to do that anymore. You can literally type, like, standard British accent dialect into YouTube and watch, you know.
There's a couple of good YouTube videos, and maybe if the mods are feeling feisty, they might look them up for me. But there's one about Shakespearean English, which basically it's a father-son professor, and his son is an actor, and the professor studied Old English, basically, and what that sounds like, or what that sounded like. And it puts a whole new spin on Shakespeare, because a lot of things that didn't seem like they would rhyme and stuff like that actually rhymed in Old English. And so the sound is much more different, but it's cool to listen to because it gives you a different. It's a very Swedish kind of cadence to it. It's a very, you know, because there's sort of that, you have the pentameter, but
and Old English is actually based on a version called Low German. Yeah, there's a lot of influence, like, from that area. Sure. Like, English is a big trash language, really, but
there's in addition to that, there's a couple of dialect coaches who have done, like, they're like 3-minute videos. They're super short, and they're just like accents from around the world. And it's there's one, I forget her name, but she's a dialect coach, and she basically does an accent from almost everywhere around the world, and she's got European accents galore. Then she's got all across America, and she's got the transcontinental accent and stuff like that. But she tells you, like, oh, put your tongue further ahead in your throat or in your mouth or something like that, and all these other things, so that you get a little bit of an idea of how to tweak the Scottish accent, so you get a little bit of an Irish accent out of it, or, you know, a Swedish accent, and then you can tweak a little bit and get a Russian thing going on, and a German, you can do a French. They're all sort of tied together. Everything is sort of tied together. So if you're using accents to sort of delineate the different races or to delineate your characters from each other, there are a lot of simple tools out there, like Tom said, that are short, sweet, and can get you going super fast for that sort of thing.
But all right, I'm going to give 2 more tips about accents and voices, right? Because it did come up quite a bit last night.
It's under authority issues.
It's a number thing, yeah. And one is that an old actor's trick is that you introduce the accent very heavily to begin with, and then you kind of, like, trail it off the longer the conversation goes on, so that there's just maybe little flecks and flavor seasoning particles mixed in there as they talk, but the player hears it very heavy to begin with, and then as it goes on, like they kind of like forget about it. Like so you establish what it is up front, and then you don't worry about every single sentence being like 100% accurate, true to form on accent, right? So that's a trick. I don't know that it always works. Like it works better in a film where like the viewer is kind of like, you're not having a conversation with them. It doesn't work necessarily as well at the table where I'm the DM and I may be 3 different PCs who all I have to give a unique voice to, and the only way the player knows who's talking is because one guy talks like this and another guy talks like this, right? So it's that tip I don't think is as helpful in a D&D context, because odds are I'm probably playing multiple characters. If they're just having one conversation with one guy, then you can kind of get away with it. But it's not a super valuable tip. It's just, it's there for you to kind of like think about, right? That you don't have to maintain it the entire time. But the more important point that I would make is that you can get a lot of mileage if you're not great at pronunciations and your tongue gets tripped up and you're just sort of like, you got a mouthful of American English and that's just the way it is, that's fine, right? You don't have to learn how the Germans roll their R's in a particular way, or how an umlaut is pronounced. You can get so much mileage out of just changing 2 things, right? The pitch of your voice and the cadence of how fast you speak, right? And if you can set those things to be, that combination to be distinct, then you can create like wonderful, like very specific characters that are incredibly different, that your players will recognize, but that you don't have to go around and go, oh, well, that wasn't an authentic Southern accent, or your Scottish sounds Irish or whatever. You don't have to worry about that, right? So just to give you an example, if you have an NPC who says, I want you to go to the Dale Lands and bring me the sword. Okay, I spoke very direct, it's all very bom, 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 bom. I want you to go to the Dale Lands and bring me the sword. The cadence is very even. My voice is a little bit lower, a little bit huskier than I normally speak, right? So I've brought it down, I've brought a little bit of breath into it. That's one voice. Okay, well that's a very distinct character, and I can say just about anything. Maybe it'll get a little bit monotonous if I just keep talking this way. But when you talk this way and you know what the rhythm is, it gives you a through line for the character, and now I can actually act better because I have breath and I have momentum behind what's going on. And the only danger is that I'm going to run out of knowing what I'm going to say next, right? And then you contrast that with, I want you to go to the Dale Lands and bring me that sword. Now, we have this high arc that just kind of floats, and then he drops onto his thought, right? Okay, well, I changed the pitch up really high, and I changed the cadence so that it's much less driven. It's a little bit more airy, and then, oh yeah, he comes to a conclusion about something, right? Well, now I have an idea of what that guy is like, right? He's a guy who he has to think about what he's going to say, but when he finally makes up his mind, he gets right to the point. Okay, and that informs that, right? So those are 2 variables that you can play with. And if you just play with the idea of like how fast I say things and where I'm at in my register, and don't like push yourself to the extremes, because then it's hard on your voice, but it's also hard on your players to listen to it. You can create amazingly detailed and distinct characters, and all you really need to know is Husky talks fast.
Yeah. Yeah, the human brain is designed to listen to cadences, and that's how we tell things are different when you hear something different, and when people go like, "Are you okay? You sound different." It's because the voice, the timbre of the voice is slightly changed. When you're sick and you have your throat is congested or whatever, is tightened and stuff, you're going to sound a little bit different, and your cadence is going to be different. But anytime Tom comes into the scene now and he has that voice that is, has a specific cadence, like he doesn't even have to introduce the character. The players are going to immediately know, oh, it's that guy.
Well, what did you find out?
Yeah, oh great, he's back,
Okay.
But yeah, anyway. Yeah, well, it didn't start with Jopper, the Cockney lower class British accent for Half-Orcs. I think it started with Lord of the Rings, actually.
Yeah, it's a little bit of
thick
that.
and juicy!
Yeah. I don't remember I don't know if there's something else I was going to say about that, but so the only other thing that I will say, just to bring it back around, is when I'm sitting at the table, I will go, okay, what accents have I done before, and how can I make this character different? So that's how Talia ended up Southern, is because I had done a bunch of kind of like weird, inaccurate British accents, and I'm like, I need to switch it up, and I'm not going to make her American, so I want to make her something, like, I'm not going to make her Minnesotan or American, whatever I speak. I'm not going to make her Midwestern, so I'm going to give her a little bit of a Southern look, and that turned right into Avril's accent, right? Well, now all of a sudden it created a character connection because of a choice that I made. It was the same thing with the Giants last night. I was like, what can I do with these Giants that will be completely different than what we have already seen at the table and what the audience has already seen in front of the camera? I was like, well, an easy one. I'm going to go German. I have that in my hip pocket. I'm going to do that. So.
Well, what we learned is that Udo somehow, at some point, trained with giants. Was raised by giants.
Udo Meinhardt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long call. That's a long callback,
Yeah.
but yes. To get us back on track here, I thought the PowerPoint presentation part of the thing to introduce the location and where they were going to give them the mission briefing, I thought that went really well. I thought it was interesting. It was a really great opportunity to introduce some disinformation type of stuff, like these are the weird monsters that you might meet.
Right.
And it was funny to me that they kind of like took that at face value, and I was trying to very obviously make a play on like, okay, this is the Bigfoot story around the mountain, and none of it is probably true.
Right.
And they were like, what kind of weaknesses do these monsters have?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, well, fuck. Now I gotta make up some weaknesses for these bullshit monsters that I just wrote. Yeah. I wrote them down because they sounded cool. I did the
That's how it goes.
Neck throat was was a callback.
Yeah.
That was a callback. That was very deliberate. Although part of that was, okay, it's not completely bullshit, because I did go through the Tome of Beasts and go, hey, what would be cool to throw at the party, if they're in the area, when we make it to the Barrier Peaks, which of course we'll do next session, as I've been saying for the last 4 sessions. And there's a monster in the Tome of Beasts. There's actually 2 different monsters that are like a torso with just a mouth in it. Like there's no neck, there's no head. It's just like there's a giant that has like a weird like gaping maw and an eyeball on each shoulder, and I'm like, Rah! And I'm like, that looks like a weird freaky monster that you might find in the area of the ship, right? And then I looked at it and I'm like, well, it looks like it's just like a neck throat. So that's where that callback came from.
I love that, because I was like, neck throat, and like behind the scenes, and everyone at the table is just all like, neck throat, that's weird. Like strangling? Like I don't.
It's a little bit sad. Yeah. It's a little bit sad, right? Because that was such a fun trope from Barky's Brigade.
Yeah.
I love the power scry. I'm glad that chat unlocked all of the slides, because most of those slides were bonus slides. I love the weird thing about the goats. I'm not exactly sure. Like I have some ideas, but I kind of love the idea that there's this like mundane sacred animal that's everywhere in the Great Peak Mountains. Like there's just fucking goats everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I thought about having some sort of encounter where they land at like a village at the base of the mountain, right? And they go and talk to kind of the locals. And the locals are like, oh, are you gonna make a sacrifice to the gods? Are you gonna appease the gods before you go on this journey?
Right.
And a lot of this is inspired by my wife's ardent fandom for cryptid podcasts, right? Because she was listening to this some sort of mountain climbing episode where people it's like these mountains in Brazil or something, or the Andes or whatever it was, and the people, Westerners would go to that mountain chain, and the natives would be like, "Are you going to make a sacrifice to the gods?" And they were like, "What are you talking about? No, we're just going to go mountain climbing." And then they would go up into the mountains, have this completely bizarre, like horrible experience, and get lost and disoriented, and come back, like 3 days later, like dehydrated and not knowing what happened. And the natives are like, "Yeah, you didn't make a fucking sacrifice to the gods, and there's a god that lives on the mountain who like took it out on you."
Right.
So I loved that idea, and so I incorporated that into like, okay, well, there's these goats everywhere that they sort of represent sort of the purity of the mountain, and if you mess with them, you're going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. Of course, like Havana's first response, I don't know if she said it on the show or at the end of the show, where she was like, "I want to kill one of those fucking goats." So that's good too. Yeah, I don't know exactly. I have some thoughts about what if the goats are some sort of security system, right? What if not necessarily set up by the people inside the ship or something like that, but what if the goats they have some sort of either nanotechnology in them, or maybe they're like magically bound so that like they're the observers on the hill, right? Sure. Like they are the security cameras that maybe are set up by, I don't know, like the Lords of Waterdeep, or some gods, or some sort of ancient brotherhood that watches over this place, or whatever the answer is. Like their function they actually do have a function other than to just be like this random weird kind of thing.
Maybe they're all robots.
I thought about that too. Like I thought about them having like iron horns, but then I thought, well, they would probably somebody would probably try and kill them for their unusual horns, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make them mundane, but I think they might actually have some sort of greater purpose or hidden purpose. Yep. Which again, your job as the DM is to serve up a twist, serve up some sort of surprise, right? So. That would be something that's, the straightforward thing is like, yeah, let's go kill some goats. And like, the surprise is, you open it up and it's like, it's filled with sort of these weird green wriggling maggots or something like that don't seem to be harming it whatsoever. But once you open it up, they go all over.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's going to freak Havana out for sure. She hates that stuff. So, yeah, I've always loved the idea in my fantasy campaigns of, I think Shimmickson says it's like the birds in Fallout 4. Mm-hmm. In my fantasy campaigns, I've always loved the idea that there's some sort of like Lord of Crows or whatever, and that all of the crows are just watching, like they're just keeping track of what's going on. Oh, okay, and if you ever try to commit, a crime or do something against the Lord of Crows, like the Lord of Crows knows all because he has all these birds who their only job is to like sit and watch and observe what's happening, and then if somebody bugs them, they fly away.
Right.
And if they get killed, who cares? There's 3 more crows.
Hi, Dragon.
So, what is up? So, I really enjoyed the PowerPoint presentation. I thought it was a fun way to deliver a crap load of exposition in a fairly compact and concise way without it being a ton of like, here's a handout, here's a handout.
Thanks, Blind Seer. Yeah.
Blind Seer.
Blind Seer says they think that you're the greatest GM they've ever seen.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I think that's the second time we've ever gotten an actual donation on this show.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I think that I don't remember what I was saying before we
completely thrown us off. You were talking about the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. So instead of it being a bunch of handouts and like me just like reading from a scroll, like it felt a little more interactive. It was fun, kind of whimsical, and it was a way for me to cover a bunch of different topics in a way that did not have to be connected, right? So it's just like bam, 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 bam. Okay, now we're going to talk about there's these weird geysers. Now there's this strange fog. Now there's this ancient kingdom of Netheril that may have been impacted by it. I was able to bring a lot of different ideas together. And normally what I would do is like, oh well, here's a letter from the ancient sage of Alondo of Candlekeep talking about the history of Netheril, and it would have been this like like 800-word kind of diatribe about lo long in the days of the Dale lands before the ancient blah blah blah. It would have been a lot of high-minded gobbledygook that you hand them that sheet and they could literally spend 10 minutes reading it and not necessarily get the high points. So it was the terrific part about this was like I could just give them the high points of a particular topic and then move on to the next one. It's almost like a weird kind of version of Schrodinger's clues, right? I didn't have to give a lot of detail on any one particular thing. I could rapid fire, like pop a bunch of them out of there and then move on. Speaking of the disapproving note, I did think it was hilarious that that Havana lobbied so hard to get her tome of intelligence building, right? And just like, oh, I've got to get this thing. Yeah. And then Xanathar was like, oh, you want it now, huh? All right, fine. Yeah. Go ahead. Read that book. It's all yours. Enjoy. And she was like, oh, shit. Yeah. No, I'm not going to read the book. Yeah. And I didn't even say anything. All right, so that was that. Let's move on to, not that we have to wrap right at 3 o'clock, but I want to keep things. We've had some great discussion, but I do want to cover some of the points on our agenda here, right? So the Giants encounter, I like the airship. I think the airship is fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very simple.
Yeah.
The Giants encounter was completely improvised on the spot, which, maybe note to self, when you include a stretch in the chat donations, maybe have a little hip pocket for that. Now, I will tell you that this is where playing other adventures pays off, right? Because a lot of that setup was lifted directly out of Storm King's Thunder, and anybody who's read that or is familiar with my playthrough of it certainly saw some of those same elements: the layout of the castle, the snootiness of the cloud giants, all that kind of stuff. But the players at the table, I don't know, maybe Gaurav and Eric had an idea, but they certainly didn't tip their hands on it at all. She couldn't read the book. I suppose that's true. I didn't think about the fact that she couldn't read the book while she was invisible. She wasn't too keen to read it anyhow, so it kind of worked out in a funny kind of way. I also deliberately decided that it was going to be 5 days to get to the mountain, so she wouldn't have time to finish the whole thing if she wanted to, right? Like I decided that I'm going to try and keep that to less than 6 days. But yeah, so when faced with this temptation thing, I guess I had two choices, right? I could have introduced some sort of temptation when they arrived at the foot of the Great Peak Mountains, or I could have introduced something along the way, and that's obviously what I chose to do, right? This turned into, I thought, a very interesting role-playing scenario, right? I knew I was playing to Eliza's character in terms of the whole that whole plot point or plot divergence of like a temptation is introduced. That was directed quite clearly at her character. But then Avril picked up on it too. Yeah. Right? And it was fun because it became a bonding moment for them. Also, there was just a lot of great development that happened in that scene. Like when we had to go on that tangent, I was like, is this going to be interesting, right? Well, we got some great bonding between two of the characters at the table. That was well worth it. We got to meet these cloud giants, which was an interesting point of world development, world building. I'm not necessarily a fan of doing a ton of world building, but it did add a new dimension. More importantly, though, as a result of that world building, they started to ask questions like, what's your take on this place where the gods fell? And then we got this whole story about the giants and the dragons and how the giants have become the gods. And I thought that was a great way to develop and reinforce some of the information that they had gotten earlier in the PowerPoint presentation and also in some of the other background information that they got, right? So to me, the whole thing really really did pay off as a meaningful encounter. Like, it's one thing to have a satisfying encounter, like, it was really fun to kill those 12 orcs. It's another thing to have a meaningful encounter where it's like, oh, okay, we walked out of here with more than we came in with, and I don't just mean we lifted a bunch of silverware. Like, we came in with a better idea of, the giants think this place is dangerous.
Right.
Okay, and that sort of thing. And yeah, Thawne got blitzed. I did myself have a lot of fun playing the drunken ogre guy playing Grunwald. I thought that was fun to play, and also just the bizarre rant that he went off on. I did, provided insight into the giant civilization, or at least that portion of giant culture, and also insight into what's laying ahead of them. This is a foreshadowing moment, right? So yeah, as FD Every says, it was a way to use the creation myth as a plot point in the thing. Yeah, and then when whoever, like, who said that, who's got the dragon tattoo right now? I think it was Grayson. It was Grayson, right? And how that just turned everything.
Yeah.
Because part of it was like, I was watching the clock, and I don't like to, I'm trying to be more conscientious about not running late for the sake of running late. And so I'm like, okay, like, how do we bring this to a close? What's our out on this? You want to always end, with some sort of pop.
Right.
And then that happened, and he had just given this huge rant about dragons versus giants, and he brings up the tattoo, and it's like, whoa, what's this? Oh, that's interesting. What's this? And then, like, you have a what?
Yeah.
And the whole thing just turned on its heels at that point. I also think it's an opportunity to watch, to give the characters a chance to succeed, right? Like, I could have had like a 5-alarm fire where Rotmund wakes up and starts casting spells, and we start a big kind of like, escape from the collapsing temple type of thing. But we were out of time at that point, like very close to out of time. I knew we weren't going to be able to pull that off in a satisfying way. And it was better for me to go, you know what? The players talk their way out of this one. They pull one over. They get away with one. Why not? Let's give them that victory. Especially after having jacked them around so hard with Xanathar. If we talk about kind of like tracking our wins and losses in terms of like, did the players score a win in this encounter, or did they lose something in this encounter? If you track that sort of stuff, they had had a big win, and then they started immediately losing. Like Xanathar was like, "Hey, I've got your potion. Hey, I'm gonna make you go on this mission. Hey, you're not getting everything that you want. Hey," and so it was like, let's give them a score where they get some gold, which is, who cares?
Right.
Like, they already have, the thing that I don't get is they already have ostensibly 30,000 gold pieces, right?
Yeah, they have a lot.
They have a lot of cash, but that hasn't slaked their greed at all. So one, who cares? And two, why not give them that put that score up on the board for them?
Sure.
All right. I'm gonna very briefly talk about this thing called the issue of risk, and really all I'm gonna do is mention that Rob Donahue, over on his blog called The Walking Mind, which is over on Evil Hat's site, wrote an entire essay about risk and sort of encounter design, and I retweeted it, but it's a really interesting way for you to look at different outcomes for an encounter, right? So what is the character risking? Is it all there? It's all there. Look at that. We did it. Now this graphic is taken from his article, so I'm not going to claim any credit towards it. But we always think about like cost and harm, that it might cost an encounter might cost the characters time or resources, or they might suffer injury, right? But the other things that might come out of an encounter is it might delay them. There might be secondary consequences from a spillover. It might be successful but ineffective. Like the way that it turns out might not be the way that they predicted it turned out. There might be there might be some sort of revelation on the character's part, right? Not something that they realize, but that somebody else realizes about them. Oh, they recognize, they get recognized by the city guard or by a bystander, or it gets seen which way they exit the compound or whatever. the confusion might result as a result of this encounter. They might gain the wrong information. They might gain the wrong impression about something that might happen, or the coordination between them and some NPCs or within internally might break down. And then finally, there might be waste. There just might be an excessive, like you might use more resources than you need. You might burn up healing potions you didn't want to use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I thought this was a really valuable for me as a DM. When you're sitting there thinking about like, okay, what kind of move can I pull on my players? The easy one is, okay, I'm going to make them pay a hit point price, right? Or I'm gonna make them fight to try and get some more information. But there's a bunch of secondary consequences on here, or different types of consequences on here. There's risks involved that help make your characters have a more interesting outcome than just those two basic things, right? And that's what I was really struck by this article of how cleanly and clearly he defined these categories. That the consequences for failure or the complications that come out of your success can actually be far more interesting than just the trap goes off and you have to make a save versus poison or whatever. So I really encourage you, hopefully somebody in the chat, Dom had to step out for a minute, hopefully somebody in the chat can find Rob Donahue's blog over on the Evil Hat site and read through this. He maps it very specifically to Fate Accelerated, but you can see how those things would play out in your D&D game or whatever. So that's an article that I think it's worth reading on its own, but I wanted to bring it into today's discussion because it was illuminating for me. I always like to see these things categorized into neat buckets that I can go, oh, okay, here's an option, here's an option, here's an option for failure, rather than just, you know, it's almost like the old Dungeon World of format of, okay, on a 7 to 9, one of these three things, you know, you make your attack, but one of these things happens, and on a 6 minus, you know, the DM gets to make a move. Choose your list from this menu of moves. For me, this kind of increases the menu of moves that I have available to me as a DM. Right? Did you get your car moved?
No, I used the restroom.
Listen, hold it or GTFO. That's what I have to say about that.
No.
That includes you, buddy. Yeah. So yeah, that's the blog. Check it out. Thank you, BSB Care, for dropping that link in there. I think it's well worth a read, and he goes into it in much more detail and much more clearly than I necessarily did here. All right, so that brings us to our little. Okay, buddy. Easy. Why don't you lay down? Hey, lay down. Hey.
We have a rampaging deer in the studio.
All right, lay down.
A rampaging deer and a little piglet.
Hey. Hey.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now they're both up.
He's just grumpy because he can't find a way to lay down underneath the shelf. Yeah. Good boy. All right, so I don't know how many of you out there also backed the Game Night Life gaming tiles, the dungeon map. What's the best way to do this? You want me to put it here?
You can,
I
yes.
guess. Is there a better table overhead view? No. Oh, the table cam's out here. I suppose we could turn the table cam pointed up a little bit. I don't know. It's all good. So, I backed the Kickstarter a while back, and they ran into a bunch of production issues. And honestly, like, I just felt sorry for them at a certain point, where it was like, I'm interested to see where it goes. I was only into the Kickstarter for $30, so I was prepared to write off my pledge. It wasn't like, not that I could just throw $30 out the window, but considering how long and how much of a struggle they had and how many vendors screwed them over, I was like, I don't, if you want to give me a partial refund, I don't care. But yeah. The other part of it is, I have to say, the founding intent of Kickstarter is for people to try things. And that means not every project gets delivered exactly what was promised, right? And I think it's important to make peace with that. Like, I'm a super backer. I've backed over 100 and some projects, right? You can't, I know a lot of companies position it as a pre-order type of situation, and I know a lot of Kickstarter backers demand to be treated, with respect. I backed you for da 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 da, and like, but it's not that type of relationship, right? Like, most of the people that I have backed, there's a certain percentage of game companies that are full-on businesses, right? So like Monty Cook Games, right? Mm-hmm. I know that this is part of their business and that they're going to make things right. For instance, they had some problems with the boxed versions of Numenera and the boxed versions of The Strange because the books inside are so heavy that they start cracking the seams or whatever, right? I know that they're going to make it right, and they have been making those things right. Mm-hmm. And if it means a delay in my delivery so that I can get the proper box that's going to work fine, great. But a company like this is brand new, or a small independent creator, it's very easy during the Kickstarter campaign to start brainstorming stuff where it's like, oh, and then we got to keep the hustle going. We got to keep people excited. Why don't we start, and then they throw in everything but the kitchen sink, and then they overpromise, and they find themselves in a position where they can't deliver, or they didn't account for all of their shipping expenses, and now all of a sudden their margins get really thin. I have sympathy for those people. I understand that. I understand that part of my investment is to help them learn how to run their business. Mm-hmm. So, and whether they go back and do it again or not, it's certainly my prerogative to decide not to come back and back that company again, or that creator again. If I decide, oh, they didn't do a really good job, I've got 2 Kickstarter pledges out right now where I'm like, why did you start the second Kickstarter when you haven't even started delivery on the first one? Yeah. And there are certain people who just use Kickstarter as kind of like a rolling thing. And if they can deliver, that's fine. But I like to see some good faith effort on their part to make it happen. Anyway, so that's the thing. Soon Raccoon says stretch goals are one of the worst things that happen to Kickstarter, and to some degree, I guess I'll accept that. I do understand, kind of as a person who tries to have a fair, at least a rudimentary understanding of marketing and how to make it work. And having watched all of this stuff roll out, I understand why it's used. I'm also pretty good at sniffing out when a stretch goal is arbitrary and they're just using it to juice backers, and when it's something that they've planned for and it seems like it's deliverable, right? So it's one of those things where it's your responsibility as a consumer to use the sniff test and go, this is borderline, but I'm going to back it, and if I get burned on it, I'm okay with it. And that was kind of where I was at with this, where it was a low enough investment that I didn't have a lot of skin in the game. And I'll be honest, Tales from the Loop, when that Kickstarter went out, I wasn't familiar with Modifius. I thought the art was really cool. I knew zero about the game system. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not in this for $120. That's too much for me to lay out and potentially get a substandard product that I don't like, I'll never use. In hindsight, I was wrong about that. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel bad about, I don't feel particularly bad about erring on the safe side. So it's the responsibility is as much on us as the consumers and the backers as it is on the company to exercise our own judgment and be okay with our own amount of risk. So that's just sort of a preface for me saying, I got this thing. I didn't think I actually was ever going to get it, right? I didn't think that it was going to deliver. And it was oftentimes heartbreaking to watch them make the journey to getting this box out there, because they were making decisions that I'm like, I'm not sure that I would do that, but I'm not here to tell you how to run your business. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, stretch goals are best when the team has planned for the stretch goals ahead of time. That's what we did when we did the initial Kickstarter for Saving Throw that started it all, and then I know other groups have done that, but yeah, you can tell when they haven't been planned for, and it's just like, oh, we're gonna throw this in the mix, and it's like, okay, but you're only getting $10 for that,
right? Right, yeah. Or how is that going to turn into not be a shipping nightmare or whatever?
Yeah.
And I think it is tricky. Like if you have other people, as add-ons to add content. Now it simplifies what your core team has to do, but it also complicates what your project manager has to coordinate. Because I'll tell you one thing, it's easy to get one person chained to a desk and go, write these 5 things.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to get 5 people who are all freelancers doing other jobs, probably like a primary day job, and then a bunch of secondary freelance RPG development to go, I need your 5,000 words and your 5,000 words and your 5,000 words and your 5,000 words, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very complicated thing. And my final closing remark on this whole thing is when people get pissy about like, oh, why don't you just do a Kickstarter? Or why don't you just do a GoFundMe? Or why don't you just do a Patreon? Like, it's just free money. It's like, you do not understand what's involved here.
Yeah.
And I think it's a toxic consumer mentality. To turn that around, let's hopefully have a moment of joy and open this thing up and see what these things look like, because I obviously haven't opened the box, and it arrived as a complete surprise today. My wife was like, you got 2 packages. I'm like, I was expecting 1 package, and here it was. So, yeah, okay, open the box. All right. James V., I have nothing but opinions. Everything else, my whole reputation is based on me being a blowhard. You know that more than anyone, probably. All right.
If Gwyneth Paltrow's head is in here, then...
Oh, no. Oh, it's funny. It says it's from Goop headquarters. All right.
Bye, Shimixon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. So, I don't know. Do we go? Should we flip back over to here?
I can.
Yeah, let's do it. There we go. So, this was kind of our backer consolation prizes. We got this set of vinyl stickers that has a spider web and a pit and lightning effects and has some very basic things on it. So that was nice of them to include.
A baggie.
And we've got what it is it's a bag for your tiles, right? So that's nice. And it's got this little pocket that I assume is what you put your template in, right? So that's pretty cool, actually. Like, I think that's a neat little custom bag. I haven't seen anyone else deliver something like this. And just my first impression, I didn't even remember that this was going to be in there. And I really appreciate this being in there. I think that's cool. There is a little template here for drawing spell effects and doors and stairwells and all that kind of stuff with your dry erase markers. I'm keen to try that out. It looks like you're really going to need a fine tip marker to make that work. But I like the fact that it's got is that a 30 or a 60 or whatever it is, and it's got an arc and it's got a 90 degree. And I like little drawing templates like this myself. I'm kind of a nerd that way. But this is a cool thing that I want to include. I don't know with this bag how well it's going to travel. I don't think that's for that,
I think
actually.
That's for pens
Yeah, that might be for your eraser and your packet of pens and things like that. But this was also a cool thing that I think they talked about during the Kickstarter, and I was sort of like, well, it sounds cool. Let's hope it turns out cool. I think this turned out cool. I need to try it in real life to see what it's like. And then I opted for the most basic version of the tiles, and I think that's one of the reasons that I got them so relatively ahead of everybody else, is that I just got the square ones with the squares on them, and I got the most basic color. As this project went on, I was like, I'm going to mitigate my risk by making my order as simple and straightforward as possible. Now, the big appeal of these things was that they have rare earth magnets embedded in the side. You can see that in the overhead view there. And so the idea is they cling together, right? And that's that's largely true. Like they've got
Yeah.
something. Now, there's a little film on the top of these tiles, and I'm unclear if that's supposed to be removed or not.
Yeah.
Right? It looks like it is, because it just peels right up.
The other appeal of these was that you can use dry erase or wet erase or
Permanent marker,
You can use Sharpies and stuff, and you can erase any of it.
I'm not prepared to try that. But that was one of the things that they were. I think maybe they kind of got in trouble by over-promising that piece of it. Right? Was that this surface was going to be so, so rock and roll, so ready to go for a variety of mediums. These aren't particularly difficult to peel apart. I don't know. You can't really see that in this.
No, not in this angle. No.
Yeah. I can. Here, let me. So, they do clip together fairly nicely. I think, you'll want to work a little bit to get them exactly aligned if that's going to be your OCD thing. I'm not entirely sold on the fact that the edge is just its own line, that it doesn't, to me this looks like a set of double squares, but that's, whatever. Yeah. I'm not going to fuss about it too much.
I like the kind of neoprene backing.
The back is this kind of like, nice kind of soft neoprene material. But yeah, I like the way they click together.
Yep.
And so to me, the big advantage of this, like I was talking to Dom before the stream, and I said, it's tricky because the gaming paper game tiles are like very inexpensive and a great solution as well, right? The advantage to this is you don't have to line up the puzzle piece kind of connectors, right? Like it doesn't matter. You can slam it together, turn it around, you just lay them down and clip, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, right? I think the color's fine. I think there's like a gray option, or there might have been like a white on blue or whatever, but I just opted for the most basic, and that's because I wasn't necessarily, like I said, I wanted to mitigate my risk. This one, the corner is chipped out a little bit. It's not a deal breaker. It's a little weird, but it's not a deal breaker.
It looked like there was a little bit of, on some of them, the corners were a little bit scuffed, but that's not huge.
I mean, I got, let's see, there's what, 5, I got 11 tiles for $30 or whatever it was, which was pretty reasonable, I thought. The other nice thing about this is I don't have to worry about folding, unfolding, that there's going to be crease marks, anything like that, and I can make it whatever size I want in whatever dimension I want, right? I don't know if you want to flip to the overhead. We don't have this. This is the overhead, isn't it?
Yeah, you're on the overhead right now.
Why don't you flip to the front camera? So I can adjust this. If I want a 4x4, great. If I want it to go out this way, I can just start expanding on it. That's easy to do. If I want to do a weird irregular shape, I can do that. Yeah, I would suggest you go look at the Game Night Life actual, like, their webpage to see. I'm sure they're going to be taking orders once they get all this crap fulfilled. They may have a way to go on that. I don't know, because it was pretty wildly popular.
It's nice on the velveteen here because with that back, with the bottom,
it doesn't move at all, right?
Yeah, it feels pretty solid.
And that's the big disadvantage of like a flip mat, is that thing will skid around a little bit on your tabletop, and these seem fairly solid.
You can't put this because of the magnets. I mean, you totally can, but it doesn't stick. So if you want to put it on the side like that, you can, but they're designed to match, to line up, so it's edge to edge like that, not halfway between.
I have my dry erase markers. Let's peel them down, and let's get dirty a little bit. Not like that.
Oh, how satisfying.
I mean, part of the idea too is that you could pre-draw them. Now, Does it go like this? No. So they are designed to go face to face, right? If you try to get them to stack them back to front, they will stick this way. They won't stick the rappel, right?
Yeah, they are essentially plastic, Richard McSundy. They're plastic with a little bit with like a sort of foam. What do they call this? Foam rubber or something?
Neoprene. It seems like it's a neoprene.
Neoprene kind of backing, and then they have the magnets on each side here that are sort of embedded in there.
I just want to get them all peeled down because otherwise I have to go through the box and. Yeah, they actually once you take the wrapping off of them, they're in better shape than they because the plastic wrapping on top of them, the little sealer, has little bubbles in it. Makes it look like maybe.
You can see that.
Yeah, so this one they're not gonna be very good. Like they're not gonna take good corners, right? I don't know how you fix that other than making rounded corners. But these corners are gonna get dinged.
Yeah.
Almost all. I can see that happening.
Yeah, it's already happening there, but.
So
again, not a.
Well, you know whose battle mat does take that kind of abuse, right? Like I don't.
Looks like some of the magnets are a little bit misaligned, so you get a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, I'm not.
There.
I'm not. Well, we're in this camera over here, but I don't know if they can. So you can kind of see. It's just not quite there, right? Like there's a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna cry about that.
No, it's not a huge deal again.
And also, so that connection was misaligned, but this connection is fine, right? This kind of brings up the other idea here, which is
you can't look. See, they will attach that way. So you can put them up.
You could also use them as a little DM screen, like a little impromptu DM screen.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. Let's see how they hold up with actual dry erase markers, shall we? So, yeah, that doesn't align, but oh well, this one's.
I think
one's off.
You're off a little bit.
Yeah, these corners are broken.
Yeah.
That's a little bit disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
This one, the corner is.
I don't know if it's
too.
if they're going to be good enough to like carry with you to like a convention or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know how badly the corners
seem a little delicate.
Get dinged in your bag.
Yeah. But let's see how this goes.
All right. Well, let's use it like we'd use it.
Could it be due to shipping? It could be. They were literally shipped. They just had these on top of they have the plastic toppers here, but there was nothing protecting the edges. They were just in a box that was roughly the size and shape of these. So if they took a little bit of care in the shipping and put something around the corners, it might have
I feel like it's just part of the.
I think it's going to happen.
It's a weakness in. It's going to take a hit on the corner.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that the top layer overlaps slightly the foam rubber, and so if it hits a surface, the top layer, the layer of dry erase is the hard layer that's going to take a hit, and there's no kind of little cushion to get a bump off of the.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. Again, for what I invested in them, I'm not going to call that a deal breaker, but you know, it's not going to look the way that you necessarily want it to. I mean, that just drops right on there, which hi, look at my hat. Guys, have you seen how cool my hat is? It's a cool Iron Man hat. It's Tokidori. There's two in between there.
Looks better on Lindsay.
Wow. I mean, that's true. I'm not going to argue.
Could you stack one on top of it? Well, not really, because they don't top to bottom, they don't stick together, at least not very well. They're designed to stick back like that. So that way they stick, but not that way. That way they just all.
Did I do it right? I didn't do it right. Well, so now this is interesting. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I drew it wrong.
You drew it wrong.
I drew it wrong.
You blew it.
Congratulations. But
How well does
erases well, right?
Yeah. That's
I mean,
okay.
that's decent. Could be a lot worse.
You want me to bring the Sharpie over here?
Oh boy. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Secret room.
They're a little slick, right? Like the marker goes a little slick on there. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think you would get a lot of rub off Jolt Blaster if you stuck this back on the top like that. This is designed to erase almost. It's. Do you mind?
Well, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just erases it. So you couldn't put that. You couldn't do that.
I think the other question that I have is, yeah, if you put those two things together. Oh, did I lose my no? If they, I don't know how much they're gonna like rub a little bit. I am deliberately like rubbing them a little bit.
Yeah.
It actually didn't smudge off that much. Now I'm using an Expo, dry erase, one of the big monster ones. I would expect that to actually rub a lot worse than it did. So once you get them aligned, they snap into place pretty quickly. I like that, right? As long as you lined them up properly, it's all good. Yeah, they just kind of clamp into spot. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, not I don't know, not terrible for the price. I don't know.
I mean, I will say for my $30 or whatever that I put into it, and what I've got in front of me, I'm happy, right? And I'm curious about the durability over the course of the lifetime, but that's the concern with every single battle mat that you buy.
Sure.
Right? You might want to double check the price because I could be wrong about what I what I pledged in on and what they're going to sell them for on their site. But that's what I recall. Actually, I can look it on my phone. Let me look on my phone.
I'm gonna see. So I got squares, but I also got hexes because they had the option. Let me see. It was so long ago. If I can even remember my password.
Let's see. I don't remember do you remember what it was called?
I think it was like gaming tiles. It was so GNL mats.
Oh, that's right. It was GNL.
Wow. Yeah. So, the estimated delivery was. This was funded in April 26th of 2015.
Yeah.
So almost 3 years.
3 years in the making.
So yeah, $30. For $30, you got 10 tiles.
And there was like a bonus tile.
There was a bonus tile. I think a stretch goal was everyone got an extra tile. And I got 5 square and 5 hex, I believe. So that's what the Kickstarter prices were. I don't know if they they have
if they'll be able to sustain that sort of price point.
Look at the box. Why would I look at the box?
The box doesn't say.
It's just Game Nightlife. Game Nightlife.
Game Nightlife, LLC.
Yeah.
I mean, these are clearly their Kickstarter boxes, right? Like load them up and send them out, parcel, postage, prepaid.
The
go.
Kickstarter was not called Game Nightlife. It was GNL Mats.
GNL Mats. Yeah. Yep. So, like this is a Kickstarter that delivered. I'm happy with it. I'm curious. Let's try these.
Now these are supposed to be drop them down,
peel them off, right? So, are we? Can you show me what the camera angles are?
No.
No. You can't, huh?
No.
All right.
There. Done.
There's a hole there. I do like that they're clear. It's, they're fine. I'm glad it was an extra. It's not something that I would have necessarily ordered. Mm-hmm. There's a basic set of stairs. I think, it's some fairly simple vector graphics. It's all right.
Yeah, the box had the name of the company, but not the name. Anyway, we found it.
These are pretty. They're pretty faint, I think. At least on this color. It's not. I mean, you guys can see that on the.
There's something there. I can barely tell what it is even from here, but
that's to me that's such a weird shape. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a spray for a cone, like a spell effect. Like if that's what it's supposed to be, or it looks to me like kind of like rushing water, but it's such a strange shape to have this kind of like triangle shape.
Yeah,
it's fine. I like it's for what it needs to do. For what it does, it's fine for what it does. It was a nice bonus. It's not something that I'm also one of those people who I like to draw the stuff on the battle map, right? So I don't necessarily go in for having a bunch of templates myself. That's just me. Are we even on camera here? Kinda. Yeah, I guess we are. Hey, look at my cool hat, everybody. So, overall, I'm glad that I got it. I'm glad that they delivered, and I'm not unhappy with the product. I'd like to actually use it in a game. My main concern is how durable they are, but I like the fact that they flip together. I wonder how much you could draw something on the map. I'm just trying to draw something that maybe looks like, oh, I did this wrong. Fine, I did this wrong. It doesn't matter.
So you can erase with your finger too.
So you can just erase with your finger. It is a very slick, smooth surface, right? It's almost like a little sheen of plastic, which feels good. I think maybe that's one of the reasons the corners chip is because it's a little harder than like your average kind of battle map kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you followed this project at all, you saw the videos and stuff that the guy behind it was making, and how many builders and stuff that they went through of trying to find the materials and everything that were going to work for this, and like they'd find the people who could do the top, but the people who could do the top couldn't do the bottom, and then the people who could do the bottom couldn't do the magnets, and the people who could do this, oh, they've never worked with this material before, and blah 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 blah, and it just went on and on and on and on. So like every 6 months or so you get a little update, and they'd just be like, we're real sorry, but we're still working on trying to find it. So I'm happy that they finally found people. I mean, these are, yeah, it's pretty solid.
Well, what I think, what I'm curious about here, the magnets do a great job of making these things align, but I'm wondering if you can just kind of, let's see if I did this the right way. Yeah, I did do this the right way. Sort of flip it open, and it's, you know, basically kind of there, right? So you could kind of pre-plan a bunch of this and
just unfold them.
Unfold it. Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah. Mike Shea, I just got around to talking about the tiles. If you have anything that you want to share about your set, my quick summary is I'm fairly impressed with how they click together, and I like the way that the dry erase goes on here. It seems to stay on here. It erases pretty nicely. I'm fairly happy with that. I don't know what it would be like if I left the dry erase on. I will share one tip, is that if you have like a wipe book or whatever, like I have my wipe book and I left a bunch of notes in there from before we went on holiday break, and I came back and all that stuff was just crusted on. A little bit of toothpaste, surprisingly, really cleans those things up. The only concern that I have is the durability of the corners. I'm worried that the corners are going to chip or crack, and then those squares become kind of damaged squares.
It'll be interesting to see the hexes, because the hexes don't have, you know,
as hard of an angle.
As hard of an angle.
I know.
So.
I wanted to get the hexes, and I just decided to simplify my order to give myself a better chance of it's not happening. Your life is not happening. But as we got at earlier, I think you could take these and make a very simple
So Mike says his corners are fine.
For now. Mike, what color did you get?
Also, he chose to watch Godfather 3 instead of us.
Who is this guy?
Godfather 3? Really?
So I think you could probably, you know, set this up as a very easy, quick little initiative tracker kind of thing, right? Or a DM screen for yourself, or whatever you wanted. Hi, buddy. Yeah, are you getting fussy? We're gonna go soon. And without too much like hassle or fuss, go do.
That'd be cool. Jolt Blaster, yeah. A vinyl overlay for Fantasy Flight. Star Wars would be neat. Arclight has some cool stuff that you could probably throw in there.
So I think that's, you know, that's also a great use that you're not gonna get that out of any of your other battle map products, right? Like that's just not gonna be there. But you've got enough, you know, you got 11 tiles. You're probably not going to use them all. You can have one as like a floating whiteboard that has a little bit of utility to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's a great use for them. That is unexpected, and it's a bonus for the gimmick of having the magnets in them. That's a piece of utility that I honestly don't think that they anticipated.
If you could
Can you make a box?
just make a cube. Yeah, there you go.
Well, all right, so the question is, can you make a cube the other way? I'm sure you can. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
This might be a little bit harder, actually.
We'll see. We'll find out. I don't think so.
Okay.
Like, everybody has talked about, is this a Lego stream now? Everybody has talked about how they want to have one of those adventures on like a hypercube type of thing. And in fact, Monty Cook did one back when he was doing Dungeon a Day. That's pretty cool. You can do that with gaming paper. Like you could take a box and then paper it in gaming paper. But I like how you could just assemble this right here, right now.
And you can literally just draw on it real quick and then put it
on, right?
You know.
Yeah. I like that idea. So.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. They actually talked, I think, at one point of making metal or making the magnets across the board so that you could attach minis to it. But yeah, you can get little magnet stuff that you can maybe create something with that. But yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are the G&L mats from Gaming Night Life. It's a Kickstarter that just started delivery, in my understanding. Like as far as I know, Mike and I are the first couple people that I've heard about on the internet.
Yeah.
And I monitor my Twitter feed pretty closely, so I haven't seen a ton of these out in the wild. You've seen it here. I'm not sure what their price point is, so I don't know retail whether to go, okay, this is a must buy, but you've seen what they can do. I'm going to try and use them at our table and see what happens with them. I recommend them. I can't give a strong recommend until I see them in action, right? But I will say that my first impressions of like what I can do with it and the quality of it, apart from the concern that I have about the corners, I'd really love to get some of the hex ones.
I'll bring in my hex ones.
Yeah.
And we can put, assuming I got them.
Yeah. I just also love hexes, but yeah, I would recommend it. I can't 100% vouch for it because I have a few concerns, but they're not enough for me to go, oh, well, I threw my money down the toilet. This isn't worth it. Considering where they started, what my investment was, and the fact that they delivered, I would say, a solid product. I'm happy with it.
This is pretty much what I expected. So that's
exactly.
I think that's a mark that is a success in a Kickstarter book.
yeah, exactly.
For a new product and everything.
Yeah, well, and for a company that it was their first kind of like voyage into the waters, and I got to give them kudos for sticking with it, because I know a lot of other projects that either would straight up lie to you about what they're doing, or just like shut down and not have any communication, and you kind of have no hope of it getting delivered, right? So congratulations to G&L. Although every time I see G&L, I think of Guns N' Roses. It just gets transposed in my mind. So
I think of By and Large from Wall-E, B&L.
I see. All right. I'm not into that Disney geek stuff. I'm a real nerd.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Tom, but Iron Man makes you a Disney geek now.
No! I'm not into Iron Man. Am I? Yes, I am. That was the other package that I got today. I quick shuffled that one off to the office. My wife was like, "Whoa, wait, what was in that other box?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, it's fine. Everything's fine." Okay. Let's put them in the bag here and see what that looks like.
You put it on there. Okay.
Yeah. I like the bag. I'm a little concerned about it's like all of your edges are now lined up. They're all gonna get get dinged. So, yeah. I was the same way. It's like, you guys go ahead and just keep my $30. You've learned enough. I'm not that attached to it, and I don't want to see you go into debt over this Kickstarter project that you have sailed upon. So that's it. That's Gino Mats. Check out Mount at Game Nightlife. I'm happy with it. Yeah, cool. Satisfied. I want to see what yours look like, and I want to see what they look like in I want to see what they look like in actual use. So, hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. There was some great discussion today, some good questions, some good suggestions. We covered a lot of different topics. Yeah. I was excited to do this. It's our first real unboxing on Disorganized Play, as far as I remember.
Well, yeah, I mean, Xanathars, I guess, doesn't really count. You did.
We did do a stream for Xanathars.
And you
did
did
a preview for that.
Portal.
Yeah, you're right. I don't consider those unboxings. That was more of a preview. Kind of... Like, this was an unboxing. Yeah. So thanks so much to Fuckwad and the rest of the mods out there who keep our channel safe, friendly, clean, and accessible. BSB. Of course. Thanks to everyone who contributed a question or a comment or had an idea, shared an idea. I know that, like, a lot of times I just sit there and kind of like bat them right back at you, but it definitely, that discourse allows me to come up with something new and even better and more surprising for everyone involved. So thanks for that. Thanks to Blind Seer for the $5 donation today. That was
thank you
very
so
nice
much.
and unexpected.
Yeah, that's
I'm going to award myself a free reroll for that. That's worth a sub, right? $5 would be a monthly sub. I think that's a reroll that I can use next week. I'm making it happen. So thank you so much for joining us. So tonight is the triumphant return of Never Tell Me the Odds with America's GM, David Crennan, in the hot seat. It's their first session, yes?
First session.
All new cast, not all new casts? Half new casts?
Well, yeah, I mean,
newish cast.
Fairly, pretty much. So it's get this. It's Talene Guerra.
Yes.
It's Mason McDaniel.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's Tyler.
In the player's seat?
Yep, in the player's seat. It's Tyler Rhodes.
TJ Tyler Rhodes.
And Zeke Pinero, who you may or may not have seen before. He played in the Betrayal at House on the Hill fun-sized horror thing that we did around Halloween. He was the guy behind the DM seat, as it were, for that. But he's a huge NTMTO fan, and happy to have him playing.
Cool. So that's tonight at 8 o'clock Pacific. You can tune in for that. Tomorrow night, speaking of triumphant returns, it is the premiere of Season 3 of Wildcards with North America's GM, DJ Jordan Caves-Callerman, in the hot seat running your Savage Worlds Weird West system, Wildlands, with Mr. Dom Zook in the mix, Mr. Gaurav Galati, who you recognize from our D&D game, Miss Megan Caves-Callerman, who you recognize from our stream, and why am I blanking on who your fourth player is?
Jordan Pridgeon.
Jordan Pridgeon, the man of 1,000 faces and 17 voices. Yeah. That was not meant as a dig. I didn't mean that cruelly. The same could be said about me. Brand new season of Wildcards starts tomorrow night, so tune in for that. Sunday, it's Tempting Fate.
Yep.
Anything Saturday?
Nope.
You're on your own recognizance?
Yep.
I'll be back on Tuesday. On Monday, you can catch up for episode 2 of our Call of Cthulhu game.
It's not Call of Cthulhu.
Well, it's Fate Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah,
it's
Fate Cthulhu.
All right.
Cthulhu Fate.
Cthulhu? I don't know what to call it.
Cthulhu Fate.
Black Bag Detectives.
Yes.
Kojak meets Lovecraft.
Yeah.
You can tune in for that on Monday night. So until next time, let's dungeon!
All right. Pretty good, Tom.
2 for 15.
Pretty good.